Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome into another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios here at Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We appreciate them for hosting us, and of course, we appreciate all of our great sponsors. I'm going to talk a lot about our sponsors today because the golf tournament is going well and everything, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Right now, you want to just talk about things that are important in the world. We got a great show for you today, really good. Israel Gutierrez, who former alligator writer, covered the Gators, now big star on ESPN. We've had him on before, but it's great to have him on. Coach Spurrier will be on Monday, and then on Friday, we're actually going to tape on Thursday and then show it on Friday. We'll bring it up, get it up on Friday, right? Is that the way it's going to work? So we'll get it up early Friday. Or maybe we'll get it up Thursday. Who knows? It'll be up anyway. And Max Starks is going to join us, the great former All-American lineman, and, of course, one of the great NFL players, and now doing a lot of radio work as well. So got good shows planned for you for the next few weeks. And then we'll get into, it's not dog days. It's kind of like, okay, let's find interesting topics to talk about. And we'll do it because I'm good at that. I'm not good at a lot. Here's two things I'm not good at. Making my wife happy in the way I do things around the house. Because whatever I do is wrong. Okay? They came in, we're doing this whole remodel. And they came in and they go, which sink do you want the garbage disposal under? The left one or the right one? There's no way I'm answering that question right. There is no way. I'm getting that question wrong. If I say right, it was supposed to be in the left. So if I say left, it was supposed to be in the right. So I just called her. And then she started talking, and then it got really confusing. I just went, I kind of threw my hands up and just walked away. Said, I don't have anything to do with this. I'm not good at that, and I'm not good at not talking about myself. My wife and daughters have made that clear to me. Turning it around to be myself. I'm going to work on both those things. And now I'm going to do a show, which is kind of funny. Maybe there's a reason why I talk about myself a lot. Because I talk a lot. Nobody wants to hear any of it. All right, let's do the starting lineup. And again, we appreciate Chris Hand for doing 2 years worth of sponsorship. It is wide open if you want to get in. There's other things I can offer you. You know what I mean? Maybe golf oriented. But the starting lineup is lacking a sponsor right now. So we need a good sponsor for that. I'm going to talk to some people. But I saw the numbers that, and I don't want to give you the numbers because I don't want to do that. I mean, I don't even know if it's legal. But Jared knows that our numbers have been incredible lately. And that's not when we're supposed to be getting great numbers. Not in April and March. You're supposed to be getting them during football season. And they're usually really good then, too. But they're going up. So I think people are liking this podcast, and good. I love it. Hey, look, I want to keep doing it as long as I can. I want our sponsors to keep involved as long as I can, or as they can, and just have fun, man. That's all we do in this show. We try to get really good guests. And again, Izzy being on today is great. Max Starks on Friday, Coach Spurrier every Monday. If you're not watching this podcast, I don't know what you're watching. That'd be a good jingle. Yeah, I should record that. Yeah. I'm Pat Dooley. All right, let's get to the starting lineup, the unsponsored starting lineup. Number one, I talked about this a little bit, how last Friday was such a bummer of a day. And it was also showed you what sports is, because last Friday, Florida lost in baseball, got killed, lost his softball, blew a big lead. Trinity Thomas got hurt, and you're like, why do I watch sports? And then things got better over the weekend. But last night was the opposite of that. And that's the thing about sports. I know I keep repeating this over and over again, but that's the thing I love about it, and it's why I'm still keep doing this podcast and do all these other things. I love to talk about sports. So last night, Thursday night, for those of you listening Saturday, it was 2 nights ago. But last night, what happens? Florida softball walks off. Florida baseball beats Tennessee. Braves walk off. And I'm like, I don't want to go to bed. I just want to stay up and enjoy it. But and it was the first day of the Masters, by the way. But that's the thing. I do want to comment on the softball uniforms that Florida was wearing last night. I don't know if you saw them. Sweet. Those were awesome uniforms. Orange tops with the stripes, vertical stripes. I want one of those jerseys. And that, again, this is why you have different jerseys. Merchandising. It's all about merchandising, but they were very sweet. I actually sent Tim Walton a text about that. We'll get Tim on soon as we get closer to the end of the season. Number 2 on the starting lineup. I do want to talk about what baseball did last night, but again, guys, we're sitting here. We're filming this on Friday afternoon. By the end of the show, there could have been a decision made. I know that a lot of baseball games have already moved to doubleheaders on Friday to try to squeeze it in before this massive storm is coming. I mean, it's not like Armageddon. It's just a storm. It's coming through, and it's going to probably affect the Masters as well. But so I can only talk about the game that was last night, and if by Saturday you go, hey, I just listened to this. They lost 2 out of 3. But I'm just predicating it on that. But that was a great performance. I was so proud of those guys. And I tell you what, Josh Rivera and the transformation he has made has been unbelievable. And again, he was a really good player. Then he became a great player. And a lot of times you see that progression. You never see it like Joakim Noah, who went from I can't get on the floor to the most valuable player in the national championship. Nobody's ever going to see that again, I don't think. But anyway, the bullpen now has become a strength. They figured out, the Abner, the Slater, the Neely part of that. Now, again, they may not do well today or Saturday, but I'm just telling you, that's what it appears to be at this point. Florida now 7-0 on the road going into Friday night's game or Friday day's game. In fact, at some point I will check my phone to make sure they haven't made a decision there. The only reason I say it is because one other series, and I can't remember who was playing, has already moved to a doubleheader tomorrow to try to squeeze it in before the rain. Number 3, Sean Kelly tweeted out as they were leaving for Knoxville a picture of the plane from the Colts. So they're very look, I get why there's so much interest in Anthony Richardson and why they especially do, because they have no quarterback. They tried that Matt Ryan experiment. Did not work. That should be a new expression for me. DNW. That was a DNW. It did not work. Sure, why not? Now, I will say this. A lot depends on where you are as a franchise. If you're like, we're still trying to get there, Anthony Richardson's the guy for you. He may not be, but I would take a shot at him. If you're there and you need a quarterback, that's not the answer. It's not the answer for this year. So we'll see what happens, but it is kind of weird that the plane from the Colts has been in the Gainesville tarmac twice in the last this year. That's good, though. That says Florida has good players, so you got to be flying in and out. All right, number 4 on the starting lineup. It is a tradition unlike any other, and it is called Robbie and I watching the Masters at a local bar. And we had a blast yesterday. a lot of conversations. There were some other people there, including Robbie's wife. But we had a good time there. But then we were watching it, and it was great because they turned the sound up. Gator's Dockside, give them a plug, because Gator's Dockside also big sponsor of the Bob Dooley Invitational. But they turned it up for us so we could hear it. And I was thinking about Jim Nantz, and we started talking about Jim Nantz and how this was his last Final Four. I shouldn't say Final Four because that's final squared four, right? But anyways, his last Final Four, last championship game. He had decided to walk away from it, but they were asking him on I think it was Dan Patrick's show today, what about the Masters? And he said he's going to 50 at 50. Now then he said 51. It's a great story when he was talking about it, because he said, "Hey, look, Ken Venturi once said, you're going to do this broadcast for 50 years. You'll never see a day like this." It was the day Nicklaus won in '86, and so 50 was his goal. And then, God, I'm trying to remember who told him you need to go to 51. It was a former golfer. Jack Whitaker, the famous announcer. You need to go to 51 because that'll be the 100th year of the Masters. So now that's his goal. 51's a long way down the road. Don't worry about it. Jim Nantz will be doing it. I love Jim Nantz. Maybe I can get Izzy to tell us a story about how maybe he's a bad person or something. Because, announcers have all the gossip and all the scoop. Finally, on the starting lineup, let's talk about the portal. And it's just almost like a nightly feature in my house where I sit there and I'm watching a game and I'll look at the bottom screen and it's like, has entered portal, has entered portal, has entered portal. Some of these guys are transferring, has entered portal and transferred too, because they've already worked out deals. Look, I know how everybody feels about it. And I let me tell you what, hopefully it benefits Florida this year. But I think there's a lot of guys in the portal. They already got one guy, or two, I think, actually. People that are complaining about Florida's recruiting, and we had one of those on the radio this week, don't understand that this is not even close to being the beginning of recruiting. I mean, there's so much going on. There are going to be a bunch of guys in over the next few weeks. We'll see what they do. And then we'll see what they have on the court. Because I'm scarred forever by Kerry Blackshear, who when they got him, I said, that's it. I don't know where do you want where's the national championship game? I want to look it up because that's where we're going to be. Didn't work out for multiple reasons. One, he was not the same player he was. I don't know why. He was still good, but he wasn't great. They still pulled off a lot of big wins, but maybe you can blame coaching there. Always found a way to lose games they shouldn't lose. Anyway, there you have it. So there's a lot of activity in the portal. I think I saw Dick Weiss say that there are more than 2,000 players in the portal already. Already in the portal. Some of them are some of the great players in college basketball last year who played 35 minutes a game. They're like, nah, I can make more money somewhere else. I can go back to Kentucky or I can go to this place and make more money. It's what it's become. You better evolve or you get left behind. That is going to be the starting lineup. We'll take a break. We'll come back with the great Israel Gutierrez from ESPN. Can't wait to talk to him. We've had him on the show before. It's been a while, but we had him on the show before. And again, on Monday, Coach Spurrier, and then next Friday, Max Starks will join us, which we can't wait for that. You are listening to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Duly Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal. where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. to go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to elite speakers like coaches, NCAA football insiders, Gator greats, and more, including yours truly. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-season meetings, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Trial membership until April 11th only, featuring Billy Napier and Tommy Townsend. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org. That's membership@quarterbackclub.org, or call me, and I'll let you get to the right people.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. It's a great pleasure to bring on the Big Mills Cheesesteaks Zoom line the great Israel Gutierrez. You guys know him from Around the Horn, and his work went on the sidelines, especially on NBA games and on ESPN. I mean, he's everywhere. Izzy, how have you been?
I'm doing great. I'm actually a little hungry, though, so those cheesesteaks sound good. How are they?
They're very good at Big Mills. In fact, if you go in there, you can get free fries with your order.
Oh, well. I haven't been to Gainesville in a while, but I will go just for that, to be honest.
Yeah, Gainesville is changing drastically, I will tell you, but we'll get to that. I did want to talk about several things. One is the NBA draft. The NFL draft that's coming up. And all this talk, and you guys get asked this around the horn all the time, and about different guys, and it's amazing. And you've been through this many times, but where a guy gets filled up, then torn down, then build up, torn down, and I wonder how much of that actually is going on in the rooms of the general managers sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny, though, right? Because most of the time when these things happen, it's with, like, the top prospects and mostly quarterbacks. Like, I mean, maybe Carter in Georgia, but it's obviously he's got, a lot of issues going on. So it's not like they're just pulling stuff out of thin air to criticize him, but it's mostly these quarterbacks. And it just comes with such a high level of responsibility. And you're talking about, billion-dollar organizations. And in all likelihood, this one player, this one position is in charge of how successful that organization is going to be. So they kind of have to sort of put them through the ringer. They kind of have to make these GMs, these coaches, these scouts really nervous with what they're doing, and make sure that they're vetting everything, and make sure that, they know how a player might deal with things, whether it be in the short term or the long term. And so, yeah, if you give a guy a bunch of questions, if you make him have to defend himself. If you say, when times are difficult, how will you respond? I think, in this little window of time where they have from the end of their season to the draft, I think sort of takes them on that journey a little bit. And, I've always been a proponent of the most important time for these draft picks is the interview process. And I think that's where, toward the end of this draft process, and that's where a lot of these GMs, coaches, et cetera, will learn a lot about these players, especially the high profile, important quarterback position.
Izzy, you went to University of Florida, and you've I'm sure watched a lot of Gator games this year. And would you take Anthony Richardson as high as he's being projected? I mean, the Colts plane was in town Tuesday again. He is a freakish athlete. He's like nobody we've ever seen, but he's still a very young quarterback. It might work out great. Like nobody wants to be the guy who didn't draft Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, heck, you don't even have to go that far or that great. Nobody wants to be the team that didn't draft Josh Allen in that draft a few years back. And so you look at Anthony Richardson and say, can he be that? Because, Josh Allen was not accurate. He was not, your classic NFL. Well, he was kind of your classic drop back with a big arm, but he wasn't, what we knew would be successful in the NFL. And, a few years later with some improvements, he is. Anthony Richardson, I don't know. I mean, you tell me, Pat, like I understand the physical stuff. Like I think you can sort of coach accuracy or inaccuracy out of a quarterback. I think you can coach some decision making into a quarterback. But like I just said before, I think the most important part of the draft process for a lot of these players is the interview room. So you tell me, I mean, is he a guy that can absorb all this information? Is he somebody that can, translate that into successful quarterback play? Did he play in a college system that maybe doesn't really make sense for him? Like all these things is what, a GM or a coach is trying to figure out. And I would say, you would know that more than me. And I'm curious. Please let me know what you think.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is I think more than anything, the best thing that could happen for Anthony Richardson is to get drafted somewhere, and it'd be like Siberia would be perfect, where there was nobody in his ears anymore. I think there was, I mean, again, when you're a local guy, you're a hometown guy, and Doug Johnson went through a little bit of this too. You get a lot of people telling you what is going on, telling you what people are saying about you. I think just getting to another town is going to help him a lot. And I mean, he's got the talent. I mean, the arm strength's there, but the footwork's wasn't great. And then it would get great. Then it would go back to being bad. So, I mean, I know that a lot of NFL teams can look at him and go, we can fix that.
Right.
And he's got everything else. So I hope he does great. I really do.
The fear for me, like the comp fear would be, and not in terms of like physical ability, but like somebody who's got built up and then kind of crashes. It's Blake Bortles, where it's just like, okay, he did everything right leading up and, got drafted, what was it, 3rd overall, but then you just started seeing all the flaws. And I think with Anthony Richardson, the flaws aren't that great because you're sort of blinded by all the stars, all the things that can make him a star. And so I think it's going to be, years of somebody attempting to coach that out of him and leave all the great stuff in there. So at the very least, I think he's going to get his chances. And so we'll find out together in, 3 or 4 years, whether that's, Blake Bortles ending or whether it's Josh Allen ending.
Well, and you mentioned that, and I think that's the thing that's different about the NFL. Blake Bortles, Minshew, there's been a lot of Tim Tebow. There's been a lot of quarterbacks that have come in and had some instant success, and then the NFL goes, oh, here's what we have to do. And NFL defenses figure you out. Now, unless you were Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, they're going to figure you out.
Yeah, and I think, with guys like Richardson that have a physical ability that can overcome that can be overwhelming in some respect that you can't figure out, then the best comp is obviously Cam Newton, where you talk about a physical quarterback who, might not be as accurate, and maybe you can actually run a, let's not say college style, but a less traditional professional style offense and be successful with him the way Carolina was with Cam, or you could even argue the way the Ravens have been with Lamar Jackson. So there's just a lot of intrigue, and I think this is the perfect time for him because you have that, Josh Allen coming after, let's say, a Jamarcus Russell, which would have, probably deterred people from wanting to draft this specific skill set. So I think it's a good time for him to come out and really get every opportunity he can to better himself or to be the best quarterback he can be at the pro level.
I was trying to think, were you here when Cam Newton was here, or was he before you?
He was after me. I left there in 2000, so it was a few years
That's
after
right,
that.
99 to 2000. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I remember he couldn't throw here. He was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember interviewing him after a spring game, and he was almost in tears how bad he was throwing the ball, and and then obviously became a Heisman Trophy winner. But
yeah, that's crazy. I didn't
you
know
were
that.
back. I was trying to place who was on your roster at the Alligator. What? Because it was
was loaded, man. It was Mark Long. It was Andrea Schulstein. Now Andrea Adelson. It was Jamie Eisenberg. It was Spencer Forden, Steve Pennell, Darryl Pressgraves, Andy Staples. We had a lot. We were running deep back then.
Back in those days, we were very competitive, and I remember there would be an alligator back in the break room, and I'd look at it and kind of with one eye closed, like, what did they get? Oh God! Now we got to go chase this story because
it's funny too, because I was not the big news getter in terms of football. I actually stayed an extra semester. I should have graduated in the summer of '99, but I stayed an extra semester to cover Spurrier and the football team, and so I was just kind of getting my feet wet with the big boys, if you will. But when it came to basketball and such, the year before that, Billy Donovan's team, Udonis, Mike Miller, that where I was really sort of cutting my teeth and just, I don't know if I broke a lot of stuff, but I got good stuff and I got good relationship with those players. And so, the Alligator, man, it was awesome. It was a great time to be there.
It's probably sad for you to think that the Alligator is now in the Gainesville Sun building, which is
it?
When they moved it over there, I went, that seems kind of, we used to go head to head with these guys. I mean, there was a lot of respect, but it was very much competitive. I mean, we had to get the story,
Well, you see, it's interesting that you say that because you were the columnist, right? You didn't have to break the news. Now, obviously, you had great relationships and could break news kind of whenever you wanted, but you didn't have to do that. I would look at your columns.
I still felt it.
Did you? I would look at your columns and be like, if I'm going to write a column in the student newspaper, it's got to be this level of good. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not that good yet, so I'm just going to write stupid shit.
Well, and I appreciate that. That's a very nice compliment. But I'm telling you the truth. The Alligator was it was ridiculously good back then, and now I assume it's still publishing. I don't know if the Gainesville Sun's still publishing. To be honest with you, I haven't gotten it in 2 years. But I mean, you were smart. You got into the other side of it, including whether it's radio or and then getting to TV and doing sideline and stuff like that. Was that something you saw coming, or did it kind of fall into your lap?
No, I didn't see it coming at all. It definitely fell into my lap. It's funny because right now I'm working on a podcast. It's coming out probably in May or June, an 8-part podcast about the LeBron era Miami Heat and those 4 years.
Yeah.
And that decision is kind of where I'm at right now. I'm early on in the writing process. And that decision helped a lot of people down here in Miami. It just brought so many eyes to Miami. And so, I had been ESPN had flirted with me a few times, asked me to, take a couple of different jobs that I didn't really want to take. I think the most memorable one was a Chicago reporter. So imagine me, freezing cold outside of Soldier Field, given Chicago Bears news. Not really
because
what I was hoping for.
You're a Dominican Miami guy. That's
correct.
That is not good for Chicago.
Thin blood for sure. And so that wasn't for me. And then, when I was a columnist at the Miami Herald at the time, and so when all these eyes came down to South Florida because of LeBron, it just created a whole economy down here. And by 2012, they had offered me the right job, and I took it. Now, I had done, sports reporter since 2008. I had done other shows. And to me, that was all just kind of an extension of being a newspaper reporter. Like that was the flowers that come with it. If you're pretty decent at your job, if you work for, a major city, then yeah, you'll probably get some of these opportunities. Well, in 2012, when they asked me to be an NBA columnist and then threw all this other TV stuff at me as full time, I was like, wow, I had no idea that was coming. And that was like 12 years after I'd graduated. And so it was probably the most obvious of moves where it's just like, I'm either going to stay here and be a columnist, for the rest of my career, or I'm going to do something else. And, the TV side came up, and it's been really good. I miss writing. Like I still do some of it, and I'm still doing some right now. But it was the next obvious evolution.
Yeah, I understand that because I don't write as much as I used to, but I still write some. But I miss that feeling of sitting down in front of a computer with a blank screen and going, all right, I got ideas, I've got quotes. How am I going to put this together?
That's exactly what I'm doing right now for a podcast. It's a slightly different feel, but it's so familiar.
Yep, absolutely. I did want to ask you about, because you were here and you were here during, they weren't really the glory days, but Florida was really good. Florida fans would take what they were. What years you left in 01?
I left in 2000, so it was championship, lost in Nebraska freshman year, won the following year to FSU, and then a couple other
years,
yeah, definitely pre-urban glory years.
Yeah, exactly. But we went through that. We went through urban. We went through Billy. Where Florida is now with 2 losing records. In football and basketball for the first time since 1979, before you were born, probably before your parents met. You must sit there and go, I didn't really go to Florida,
Well, it's funny because there's a couple of things that sort of made me, not necessarily made me pull back, but just kind of naturally did. Billy Donovan leaving. And just the connection that I had with him, that team, some of those players, I think sort of made me with Mike White coming in and then just not having the same amount of success, sort of, I maybe pulled back a little bit from that fandom, a little bit, the same thing with the football team where it's just like, all right, there's coaching changes. It doesn't seem to be like that real pull to watch. And then, there was maybe a president that I didn't really love. It's just started there. That made me think, maybe I shouldn't support my university as much as I should. But a lot of those things sort of had me pulling away. But, I was thinking about this the other day with the University of Miami women's basketball team and even the men's basketball team with some of the way NIL can bring sort of attention to the bigger cities, right? Because Gainesville, and part of the appeal to me and a lot of people was it was a college town. It wasn't, right, all hustle and bustle, and it was, quaint. And I think with a lot of this money that's available to people, I think you probably look at your brand, if you will, and say, maybe I want these bigger cities. And I think some of that appeal that Florida had before of being that, college town, might not be as great. It might be in football still because the SEC is overpowering, but in some of these other sports, it might not be as great. And maybe, unless you've got some sort of billionaire donors that are just, dishing out the money, then you might find yourself in that sort of muck a little bit, in that middle of the road in all the major sports. And I think that's kind of where they are. And until you get sort of that transcendent, I would say, let's just say hypothetically, or back in time, if Anthony Richardson had been, great, not just a guy with a bunch of potential, then I think I think maybe people would have joined him and you would have had that sort of flash in the pan type of champion potential. But I think right now, when you talk about where this money is and you look at, LA, you look at those teams, you look at, Miami, you look at some of these cities that are going to cash in a little bit, literally, I think it kind of leaves a team like Florida sort of, in the wind a little bit.
Yeah, they've got to figure that out. They've got the boosters. They've got the money. They've just got to figure out how to get it right. And they certainly didn't in that last situation, as we know. All right, before we let you go, we play this game called Yes, No Way, or Maybe, and it is brought to you by Big Mill's Cheesesteak, where street dining is done the right way. Number 1 for you, Izzy Gutierrez, who I'm probably totally mispronouncing your last name, but that's always the way I
No,
pronounce it.
that's the American pronunciation, so you're good.
What is the Dominican?
I mean, it's Gutierrez if you're saying it in Spanish. It's Gutierrez, the way I say it, the American. And then some people just throw in that extra syllable, Gutierrez. That's fine.
Okay. In Israel, I got that one right, though.
You nailed it.
All right, number one, you were devastated that the Grog House is closing.
My options are what again?
Yes, no way, or maybe.
No way. Like, devastated is a strong word. Not very, very many things I'm devastated by. And, a watering hole being closed is not devastation worthy. So I'm going to go with no way.
Okay, well, the bad news is they're going to build from what I've been told, they're going to build a club for membership only for students. And so I'm not a big fan.
So like a Soho beach house, but in a college town? That's weird. So
well, that's what
wow.
I said, hey, they're called fraternities. That's that's what they do.
That's where you get your status from. You don't need a membership card. I mean, like, come on, you're in college. You're not supposed to be there yet, right? This is where you differentiate between the people who get those memberships and those who don't.
Exactly.
After college. In college, no, you can't be elite like that. That's weak.
Gainesville is changing, and it's not. None of it I like, to be honest with you. But it's kind of like football with NIL and basketball with NIL. You either adapt and evolve, or you blow away in the wind, I guess.
Yep, trying to be a big city feel for some reason.
Yeah. All right, number two on yes, no way, or maybe. The Panthers are in the wrong conference because the Bruins are so good.
You know what? I would say maybe. And the only reason I'm not saying yes is because who was that team that looked amazing last season during the regular season? Oh, yeah, it was the Florida Panthers. And they got ousted by the Tampa Bay team that, always had their number. So, these teams that win President's Trophy? These teams that win the President's Trophy are no lock to even win a playoff series. So I'm going to say maybe, because I think the Panthers still have a chance to make some noise. Like, they play playoff-style hockey, supposedly, more so than they did last year. So we'll see if that translates if they get in.
What's interesting, the Bruins are going to, if they win, I think the last two games, they set the record for most points. And I'm like, well, you get points for losing now. Yeah.
You lose in extra time.
That record's going down.
Exactly. You got to go with wins in that scenario. You can't really go with points.
Exactly. Finally, on yes, nowhere, maybe, you watched Tiger yesterday. I think he's done. Do you think he's done?
Oh, man. I'm going to stick with the maybe here. I'm going to leave some hope out there and the only reason I say this is so, like, he looked better. He was walking around better yesterday. Didn't look exhausted or broken. You saw that one shot he hit out of the bunker, or actually out of the lip or the fringe right there, where he was sort of hopping around on the good leg. I think he looks okay. And the one reason why I'm still holding out hope that he's going to win something is because Phil won one at 50. And he's still got 3 years before he gets there. And so if he's looking like he's getting in better shape, if he's got that one miracle run, and maybe there's a major where some of the live guys just kind of take a major off, or maybe they just don't want to deal with all that vitriol or whatever. And so maybe there's less competition and he sneaks in and wins a PGA or something like that. I don't think he's done. I think he's going to still provide some moments, whether he wins a tournament or not. It's just like saying, will I never watch Steph again if he's not going to win another championship? No, I'm going to watch him a lot because he brings a lot of joy. And so same thing with Tiger. Like, if he's in contention of any sort in a major or like one of those sub majors, then I think he's still got a little bit of that left in him.
Hey, at the end of this show, I do Pat Dooley's Storytime. I'm wondering for you, just really quickly, who's the guy who gave you the hardest time on the sideline as a reporter?
Two just come to mind. One was Russell Westbrook. Not shocking.
No,
not because
not shocking at
actually,
all.
you know what? Let me go back and let me go Rajon Rondo instead, because Rondo was
and
more
another guy. Yeah.
Didn't
like
him
a
either. Purposely a bit of a jerk, but or at least tried to be. Really tested people, which I knew going in, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But there was one time where Joel Embiid tried to be funny, and he tried. I think it was because he had heard something that I'd said about the Sixers or him. And so, or maybe it was praising the opponent. They ended up winning. And he tried to be funny and give me like short answers, but I was ready for them. And you could tell by the third one, he was like, "Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to," and I was like, "Yeah, I know. That's why I'm still asking you questions." And so that one to me was just like, "All right, I think I handled that one pretty well." But for the most part, nah, people are pretty good on the sidelines.
Always great talking to you, buddy, and we appreciate you. And I know the people back here in Gainesville that love reading your stuff in the Alligator, and also covering the Gators. And appreciate you, and we're proud of you as an alumnus.
Thank you.
And you're doing great work. Keep it up, man. And we'll.
I appreciate it. I know I said a couple of things about not really being the biggest Gator fan ever. No, I love the Gators. I love you guys, and thanks for having me, Pat.
Thanks, Izzy. Appreciate it, buddy. We got to take a break. We'll come back with more on another Dooley Noted. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Tebow Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to elite speakers like coaches, NCAA football insiders, Gator greats, and more, including yours truly. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-season meetings, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Trial membership until April 11th only, featuring Billy Napier and Tommy Townsend. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org. That's membership@quarterbackclub.org, or call me, and I'll let you get to the right people.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios here at Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. And we'll have Coach Spurrier on Monday. Let us get to, we got a lot of things to cover in a short period of time. That was a fun interview with Izzy. Izzy is such a great guy. And when I see him on there, there's so many guys we've kind of graduated from the Gainesville. I don't want to say the Gainesville Sun, because Izzy didn't work there. I know Jeff Darlington did, but from the UF journalism school that have done such great work, Jeff Darlington being one. Mark Long is the AP guy who does a great job. He mentioned him. Jeremy Fowler from the beat. Anyway, I'm proud of all those guys and I hope that I did. I mean, Izzy said I did influence them. I hope I did influence some of those guys. Some of them I influenced the wrong way, I'm sure. Where they go, here's the thing to do. When you're on the road, find the best bar. I'm just kidding. All right, let us get to the Hesser and Kipke 3 things. And I was actually talking with, texting back and forth to Ken Hesser. He was watching the Florida-Tennessee baseball game and couldn't believe what a bad ballpark it is. And it is a bad ballpark. It was bad when I went there in '98, but they're apparently renovating it. But it is a little bit of a bandbox. But that's one good thing about Florida. Those opposite field homers, both Rivera and Riopelle, those weren't happening last year. I mean, I know somebody hit it one, but they were not going with the pitch and letting the velocity of the ball take them out. It was a fun game Thursday night. As you know, Hesser and Kipke is a Gainesville law firm specializing in the area of workers' compensation and family law. Ken and Jennifer take great pride in their one-to-one focus on each and every client they represent. Ken is board certified in workers' compensation law by the Florida Bar, while Jennifer possesses extensive trial experience with a nearly 20-year background as a prosecutor. Don't believe me? Well, check out more. Oh, my voice got really high there. Don't believe me? Don't believe me? Don't believe me? Check out their more than 55 five-star reviews, Google reviews, or better yet, give them a call, 352-339-9920. I have had many people who've watched this show or listened to this show and have gone to them and said, man, that worked out great. Thank you. So we appreciate Hesser and Kipke. 3 things. Number 1, the NBA is almost ready to have their playoffs, and that's when I'll start watching them. And I'll only watch fourth quarters. But I'm looking forward to that. Again, it's a perfect time because now you kind of, after the national title game, you go, basketball's over, man. Well, no. We got all these NBA games to come. They'll be fun. Pick a team to root for if you don't have anybody that's a favorite. I'll negative root a little bit, but I'll root for I'm a Golden State guy. I'll root for the Warriors. I don't think their chances are real good, but we'll see what happens. But they're almost ready. I think their last game's Sunday. And then they'll have and then they start the play-ins. I think next week is going to be an unbelievable sports week. I know this week is too with the Masters and everything, but next week's going to be unbelievable. We'll talk about that next week. Number 2, the story that broke yesterday, I think it was, Tyreek Hill saying, I am done in 2025, I think it is. That'll be 10 seasons. That's all I want to do. And you know what it reminded me of? Is a young man named David Eckstein. David Eckstein, who we loved as a walk-on, who made good and made it all the way to become World Series MVP. And he told me in the press box after he retired, he goes, I want to get 10 years and then be done. Not everybody wants to play the sport they're playing. It makes them a lot of money. They love the competition, but they don't really want to be there. They don't want to be doing all the travel and everything. That was a stunning revelation from David Eckstein. And so if Tyreek Hill is going to have enough money after 3 more years, if you want to retire before you get knocked silly and have to get, you're 50 years old and you can't find your, spoon, I mean. He wants to tap into his brain and do business. Okay. Tap into his brain and do business. Okay. Whatever you want to do, it's fine. I don't have any problem with it. Barry Sanders did, right? Got out before it was too late. Jim Brown did, but it's a whole different story. I love the Jim Brown story. He basically said he was making a movie. I think it was Dirty Dozen. They said, we got to come back. Spring, it's time to train. He goes, no, I'm good. I'm making these movies. Now I'm going to be in a movie with Raquel Welch. That was a good one, too. 12 guns? Or no, 21 guns, I think it was. There were guns involved. All right, number 3, good story in The Athletic about the Pac-12 still having trouble trying to figure out their rights, and this is the biggest stories in college football are not about transfer portal and NIL. They're about the rights that you can get, and that's why the Big Ten is on top right now in that area. They've got, what is it, $100 million per team, and the SEC's right behind them, but they actually have a big lead on them. And then you have the ACC problems, and the Big 12's got problems because obviously losing their best two teams. The Pac-12 they can't even get it resolved because they've got a lot of options, and got a lot of people that are interested, but they want to pay bottom dollar. And we'll see what happens there. But it is interesting if you want to go read that story about the media rights. Let us get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. I went over to Leo's yesterday, got a bunch of new gift certificates, $25 gift certificates to be able to give out. We may pull one early this cycle. But I'll give you, it's an easy one. And I'm just trying to come up with games. With all the rain issues, I was worried about doing this, but I know it's not going to rain on the Utah at the Clippers game. Now, it could be a big game. The Lakers game. It could be a big game in terms of the playoff order and everything. It'll give you a reason to watch. 3:30 on ESPN Sunday. That is Utah at the Lakers. Pretty simple game. A lot of you did qualify. You said Florida go 2-0 on the Thursday game, so there were a bunch of qualifiers there, and we'll probably draw something by the end of next week. Our Adam's Ribco to go. Gator of the week. Oh, Adam. Oh, I may have to have some ribs tonight. Now, as soon as I say that, I go ribs. Ribs. I love ribs. Ribs and beer. I had a lot of choices. Believe me, because of what happened last night. But I went with Reagan Walsh, the Florida softball player, because she comes up, bases are loaded, nobody out. But it doesn't mean you're always going to score. Instead, she walks it off, she hits it over everybody's head, and proud of her. She's been doing really well this year, and that was a big win. Florida needed to get that win softball-wise. Certainly the win over Tennessee was, and I had a bunch of people there in baseball that I could have talked about, but Reagan Walsh got the great honor of being our Adams Ribco to go Gator of the week. Let us get to this, that, and the other. It is brought to you, as always, by the great folks at Ballyhoo Grill. That's going to come up this weekend, I think, Ballyhoo Grill. By, of course, Ironwood Golf Course. They've just aerified all the greens on both sides. So give it a day, and they should be fine. We need a little rain, too. Rain coming in this weekend, you may not like, but it's important. And then, of course, Darth Shakow Insurance. We appreciate Darth Shakow Insurance so much. Number one. This on this, that, and the other is that I remember this very distinctly. Vince Dooley, many years ago, like in the early 80s, and I were talking, and he was talking about, I'd like to see us play somebody in the spring other than just ourselves. Like, at the time, they weren't playing Clemson, I think, or they had just ended a series with Clemson. And he said, we could play Clemson. Florida could play Florida State. Now, of course, that wasn't going to happen. But Florida could play Miami. But he was bringing this up in the early 80s, I think it was. I know I covered them in the late 70s, early 80s. So he brought this up to me, and I said, well, it's never going to happen, but we'll see what happens. So that is that now all of a sudden Hugh Freeze has brought it up, and he thinks it should happen. And they could play UAB and, same kind of thing, and he could come up with a schedule, and people would watch it. Not a lot, though. Look, if your viewing for a spring game is here, it would be here. If you played somebody else, it'd be here if you were playing a team that mattered. But anyway, the other is it's not happening. But Division II, they are doing this, where they're playing spring games against other teams. And again, you're talking about numbers there. College football doesn't have to worry about having enough players. What they have to worry about is if you play a spring game and have two guys lose their ACLs in the spring game because somebody hit them because they didn't like them because they were losing. I know. That's the way college football coaches think, though. That's just the way they think. All right, so that is this, that, and the other. Let's get to the Ben Eige Odell Realty games of the weekend, and I'm going to give them to you. But look, guys, rain is coming. It could be interesting. Softball is playing at 6 today. Saturday at 1 o'clock, they're both on the Plus. Baseball, 7 o'clock tonight on the SEC Network, 2 o'clock on ESPN2 on Saturday, but who knows what's going to happen there. Masters is scheduled for 3 to 7:30 today, 3 to 7 on Saturday, 2 to 7 on Sunday. It's 2 to 1 whenever it gets done. So there's a bunch of stuff going on, but it's kind of like just keep watching and see what happens. Also, I did want to mention Billy Napier will be speaking to the Gainesville Quarterback Club, who advertises on our show, and we appreciate them. That'll be Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, and you can buy a temporary membership to go see that. So I highly recommend it, and you get to see me talk again. I'll have better jokes, I promise you. Finally, the Pat Dooley Storytime brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics. I know I'm running out of time. I'll make this a little bit short, but it is the worst question I ever asked. I told this story while we were watching the Masters yesterday. So Nicholas is in contention. This is after 86 when he won. He's in contention, so he's in the media room. And I noticed when I was following him on the first hole, he went over and he looked up he kind of leaned over to see what was going on, and Tiger's coming up, and I go, oh. So I'm waiting for my chance to ask a question, waiting for my chance, and I finally go, yes, over there, that young man. I was young then. And I said, yeah, Jack, we're on a first name basis, of course. I said, Jack, I noticed you looking over at the green on number 9 as you were coming off the first tee. Were you looking to see how Tiger was doing, what was going on with him? And he goes, no, I was looking to see where the flag was. What are you talking about? That's a dumb question. I'm like, oh, Pat, don't ask any more questions ever. I was so mortified. I don't think I got over that for years, as you can tell. It was a dumb question. I was trying to come up with a nugget that would be a great lead. Or, sometimes just ask, how do you feel? So the people that ask, how do you feel, it's a dumb question, but actually you get better responses than I did on that day. Anyway, that's enough from me on Pat Dooley's Storytime. We appreciate our great friends at Eastlake Pediatrics, one of the many sponsors of the Bob Dooley Invitational that are also sponsoring this podcast. We appreciate them so much, and appreciate everybody. And certainly appreciate Jared, who does a tremendous job recording and dealing with this and then getting it up and making sure it's doing well. Our numbers are through the roof. If you want to be a sponsor of the starting lineup, just give me a call or text me or email me or whatever. Okay? Till then, next time, which will be Monday with Coach Spurrier. Till then, I am Pat Dooley. I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.